white suit felt too heavy. Taehyung stood in front of the full-length mirror, a small, nervous smile playing on his lips. Today, he was supposed to marry Minyu. His heart fluttered like a trapped bird. Jimin, his best friend, fixed Taehyung's lapel. His eyes were worried. "Jimin, you look beautiful, TT, like a prince." "T, I'm just so happy, Jimin. Can you believe it?" But the happy feeling didn't last. The wedding time came and went. The guests in the garden shifted uncomfortably. The music never started. Minyu was nowhere to be seen. T's smile began to crack. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Minyu. "Taehyung, I can't do this. I met someone else. She's mature. She understands real life. No one will ever marry a childish boy like you. You live in a fantasy world. It's over. Don't look for me." The words blurred. The phone slipped from Taehyung's fingers and clattered on the floor. Childish, the word echoed in his head, loud and cruel. He felt the stares of everyone, his family, his friends, the pity, the whispers. He couldn't breathe. He turned and ran, his white suit a stark flash of pain as he pushed past the confused guests and out of the venue. He didn't stop until he was in a small, empty park, his sobs tearing through the silent afternoon. Author's point of view. Can you feel it? The sharp sting of public humiliation, the way a single sentence can shatter a world. Taehyung isn't childish. He's full of wonder. But in that moment, he believes the cruel lie. He didn't know how long he sat there. The sky turned orange with sunset. Suddenly, a deep, cold voice cut through his tears. "Kim Taehyung." Taehyung looked up, his vision swimming. A man stood before him, silhouetted against the dying light. He was taller, broader than Minyu. His face was heartbreakingly handsome, but it was carved from ice. Dark eyes held no warmth, only a sharp, assessing glare. This was Jungkook, Minyu's older half-brother, a man known in their circles for his ruthless business mind and his terrible, controlled anger. T wiped his cheeks hastily. "T, Jungkook SSI, JK, get up." The command was quiet but absolute. Taehyung, too broken to disobey, stumbled to his feet. "JK, the entire social circle is laughing at you. At our family by association." "T, I'm sorry. I didn't, JK. Sorry doesn't fix ruined reputations." Jungkook looked him over, from his tear-streaked face to his rumpled wedding suit. His gaze was not unkind, but it was brutally practical. "JK, my foolish brother threw away a valuable connection. Your family's name is still good. Your background is clean." Taehyung just stared, confused. What was happening? "JK, I need a spouse. A quiet, obedient one to settle business partners and stop the marriage questions. You need to save face, to show that, childish boy or not, someone of value still wanted you." A horrible, incredible understanding dawned on T. "T, W, what are you saying?" Jungkook stepped closer, and Taehyung shivered, not from fear, but from the intense, cold energy this man radiated. JK, I am saying, Kim Taehyung, that you will marry me tomorrow. It will be a contract. In name only, you will live in my house, act as my husband in public, and never bother me in private. In return, you get the Jian name, your dignity back, and a comfortable life. Do you understand? It was madness. Marry this iceberg of a man. But the alternative, going home defeated, being the joke, forever, Minu's words burned in his ears. No one will ever marry a childish boy like you. Maybe this was his only choice. Maybe this was his punishment for being too much of a dreamer. With a shaky breath, his heart feeling like a piece of glass in his chest, Taehyung met Jungkook's dark eyes. I understand. A flicker of something surprise passed through Jungkook's eyes, so fast T thought he imagined it. Then it was gone, replaced by steely resolve. JK, good. Be ready at 9 a.m. Don't be late. And with that, Jian Jungkook turned and walked away, leaving Taehyung alone in the park, his future rewritten in the coldest ink imaginable. The marriage was a quick, dry affair at the registry office. No family, just a necessary witness, Jungkook's stern cousin, Seokjin, who gave Taehyung a small, pitying smile. Then, Taehyung was brought to the Jian mansion. It was huge, modern, and painfully empty, all glass, steel, and cold marble. It felt like a museum, not a home. JK, your room is there, Jungkook said, pointing to a door down the hall from the master bedroom. My room is here. Do not enter. Your duties are simple. Manage the house staff. Attend any social events I tell you to. Be seen, not heard. Do not call me unless it is an emergency. Do not expect companionship. Each sentence was a nail in a coffin for Taehyung's hopes. He just nodded, clutching his suitcase. Okay. Jungkook looked at him for a long moment, as if waiting for an argument. When none came, he simply turned and walked into his home office, closing the door with a firm click. The first week was the loneliest of Taehyung's life. The housekeeper, a kind older lady, was nice but formal. The silence was deafening. He'd wander the vast living room, touching the expensive but soulless decor. He missed his colorful apartment, his plants, his jimin. He tried to cook once, making tteokbokki the way his grandmother taught him. The spicy, sweet smell filled the sterile kitchen. He was just plating it when Jungkook came home early. JK, what is this smell? T jumped. Jungkook stood in the kitchen entrance, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He looked angry. I made some food. Would you like some? JK, I don't eat spicy food, and I don't like smells lingering in my house. Open the windows, clean it up. He spoke like T had committed a crime. T's eyes stung, but he nodded, turning off the stove. As he hurried to open the windows, he saw Jungkook just standing there, watching him. But when T looked back, Jungkook was gone. The next day, Taehyung was in the garden, trying to feel some sun. He saw a small, neglected patch of soil. An idea sparked a small, childish idea. He went out, bought little pots, soil and seeds, marigolds and morning glories. He started tending to them on the balcony outside his room. A few days later, he was singing softly to his little seedlings when a shadow fell over him. "JK, what are you doing?" T flinched, almost dropping his watering can. "T, I'm just growing some flowers on my balcony. It won't bother the main house, I promise." He waited for the cold order to throw them away. Jungkook just stared at the small pots, his expression unreadable. T noticed then how tired Jungkook looked, shadows under his beautiful eyes. "JK, do what you want." And he left. It wasn't kindness. It was indifference. But to T, in this cold place, it felt like a tiny victory. One night, T couldn't sleep. He went to the kitchen for water. He heard voices from Jungkook's study, Jungkook's, low and furious, and another man's, pleading. "Jungkook, you have to understand the merger terms, JK. Understand. I understand you're trying to cheat me. Get out. Get out before I do something we'll both regret." There was a sound like a fist hitting wood, a terrified scramble, and the front door slamming. Taehyung froze, heart pounding. He'd heard about Jungkook's anger, but witnessing it was different. It was terrifying. He quietly crept back to his room. He understood now. He was living with a storm, and he had no idea when it would finally hit him. The incident in the study hung over the house. Taehyung became even more quiet, moving like a ghost. He tried to be invisible. A week later, Jungkook told him they had to attend a high-profile charity gala. "JK, wear this," Jungkook said, handing him a box. Inside was a stunning, deep blue suit. "JK, be ready by 7. Speak only when spoken to. Smile." The gala was a glittering nightmare. Everyone knew the story. T could see the curious, pitying looks behind their polite smiles. He heard the whispers. "Guessed 1. That's the one menu left," and Jungkook picked up the pieces. "Guessed 2. A marriage of convenience, clearly. Poor thing looks lost." T kept his smile glued on, his hand lightly on Jungkook's arm. Jungkook was a different person here, charming, powerful, a sharp smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was protecting his asset, their married image. Then the worst happened. Minyu arrived, with a tall, elegant woman on his arm. T's blood ran cold. Minyu saw them, and with a smirk, walked right over. "Minyu. Taehyung, Taehyung ah. Wow, look at you two. Playing house, are we?" Jungkook's arm under T's hand tensed into steel. "JK, Minyu, you're causing a scene." "Minyu, me. I'm just saying hello to my big brother and my almost husband." He turned his smirk to T. "I see you managed to find someone after all, though I guess even Taehyung needs someone to warm his bed, right?" It was cruel, vulgar, and loud enough for people nearby to hear. T felt the world spin. The old humiliation washed over him, fresh and suffocating. He felt small, childish, and stupid. His smile trembled and fell. But before he could even process it, Jungkook moved. He didn't shout. He stepped slightly in front of T, blocking him from Minyu's view. His voice dropped, becoming dangerously quiet. a venomous whisper meant only for his brother. JK, you will apologize to him. Now, Minyu laughed, nervous. Minyu. Or what, JK? Or I will drag you outside and remind you why you spent our childhood afraid of me. And then I will ruin the deal your new girlfriend's father is banking on. Apologize. The sheer, cold fury in Jungkook's tone was more frightening than any shout. Minyu paled. He looked from Jungkook's deadly serious face to Taehyung, who was peeking from behind Jungkook's broad shoulder. Minyu, gritting his teeth, muttered, "Sorry, Taehyung." Jungkook, louder, Minyu. "I'm sorry," he said, flushed with shame, before grabbing his girlfriend and nearly running away. The crowd lost interest. The music swelled again. But for T, everything had shifted. Jungkook turned to him. His face was still a mask of anger, but his eyes searched T's face. "JK, are you all right?" 2 words, simple. But he had asked. He had defended him, not for show, but fiercely. T, overwhelmed, could only nod, his eyes wide and wet. Jungkook looked at him for a second longer, then offered his arm again. "JK, let's go home. Not my house. Home." The car ride was silent. When they arrived, T finally found his voice, standing in the grand, cold hallway. "T, Jungkook SSI, thank you for what you did." Jungkook, who was taking off his watch, paused. He didn't look at T. "JK, he disrespected the Jian name, that's all." But it didn't feel like that was all. Later that night, as T lay awake, he replayed the moment, the feeling of Jungkook stepping in front of him. A solid, unbreakable wall between him and the hurt. The cold man had given him warmth in his own strange way. Down the hall, Jungkook stood on the balcony, looking at T's little pots of soil. The marigolds were just sprouting. He remembered the crushed look on T's face at the gala, the same look he had in the park. A strange, unfamiliar feeling twisted in his chest. It wasn't anger. It was the urge to protect, and it confused him more than any business deal ever had. Something changed after the gala. The rules were still there. The silence still dominated, but the air felt different. Taehyung noticed Jungkook would sometimes be in the living room when he was watching old, silly cartoons late at night. Jungkook would sit in an armchair working on his laptop, saying nothing. But he was there. One evening, T was feeling particularly brave. He made samgyeopsal, but with a non-spicy marinade. He set 2 places at the large dining table, his heart in his throat. When Jungkook came home, T spoke before he lost his courage. "T, I made dinner. It's not spicy, if you're hungry." Jungkook stared at the set table, then at T's hopeful, nervous face. For a long moment, he said nothing. T was sure he would refuse. "JK, I'll wash up." Those 3 words made T's face light up like the sun. They ate in silence, but it wasn't the heavy, cold silence from before. It was comfortable. Jungkook ate everything on his plate. "JK, it's adequate." Coming from him, it was high praise. T beamed. "T, thank you." One rainy afternoon, Taehyung was curled on the big sofa, a soft blanket around him, feeling a little lonely. He missed Jimin terribly. He must have dozed off, because he woke to the feeling of someone nearby. He blinked his eyes open. Jungkook was standing there, holding another blanket. He looked caught, quickly placing the blanket on the back of the sofa. "JK, the housekeeper said you might be cold." T, still sleepy and soft, smiled. "T, thank you, Jungkook SSI. You're very kind." Jungkook stiffened, as if the word kind was a foreign, uncomfortable concept. "JK, don't be ridiculous." But he didn't leave immediately. He looked out at the pouring rain. "JK, why do you do that? Smile so easily, even after everything." The question surprised T. He pulled the blanket tighter. "T, my grandmother said the world takes away enough. You have to hold onto your own joy, even if it's small, like my flowers, or good food, or a warm blanket." He said the last part, looking at the blanket Jungkook had brought. Jungkook followed his gaze. He didn't reply, just gave a barely there nod and walked to his study. But that night, when T went to his balcony, he found a small, beautiful pot with a delicate orchid plant next to his marigolds. There was no note. It just appeared like a silent apology, or maybe a secret conversation. The biggest crack came when Taehyung got sick, a bad fever that left him weak and shivering. The housekeeper fussed over him, but T felt miserable and small. Jungkook came home to a quiet house. The housekeeper informed him, "Housekeeper, the young master is very ill, sir. He's sleeping." Jungkook went to his own room, but he couldn't focus. He kept hearing a faint cough from down the hall. He tried to work, but the sound pulled at him. Finally, with a frustrated sigh, he got up. He stood outside T's room for a full minute before pushing the door open gently. T was asleep, his face flushed, hair stuck to his damp forehead. He looked fragile. Without thinking, Jungkook went to the connected bathroom, wet a cloth with cool water, and came back. He sat on the edge of the bed, something he'd never done, and carefully placed the cloth on T's forehead. T stirred, his eyes fluttering open. They were glassy with fever. "T, J. Junie," he mumbled, confusing him with someone else. "JK, SHHH, Jungkook said, his voice softer than it had ever been. "Sleep." He stayed there, replacing the cloth every so often, until T's breathing evened out and the feverish flush receded a little. In the quiet, dark room, with only the moonlight for witness, Jungkook allowed himself to look at Taehyung. Really look. He saw not a childish boy, but a man with a resilient, beautiful heart that kept trying to shine, even in the dark. He reached out, his fingers hesitating, before gently brushing a stray curl from T's forehead. "JK," whispering to himself, "what are you doing to me?" Taehyung got better, and things between them became confusingly sweet. Jungkook started having dinner with him regularly. He'd sometimes ask, in his gruff way, "What are you watching?" and sit through an episode of T's drama. He even came home one day with a new, expensive set of paints because he'd seen T doodling on some paper. T's heart, the one that was supposed to stay quiet and safe, was in serious danger. He was falling for his cold, contract husband. One day, Jimin finally came to visit. Seeing his best friend in the cold mansion, Jimin hugged him tight. Jimin, oh TT, are you okay? Is he horrible to you? T, his eyes sparkling, shook his head. T, no, Jimina. He's not what I thought. He's kind in his own way. He brings me blankets when I'm cold, Jimin. Jimin looked at him with knowing, worried eyes. Jimin, T, don't fall for him. This is a contract. He's known for his temper. He's closed off. You'll get hurt. But it was too late. T's heart was already a fluttering mess around Jungkook. The real test came during a business dinner at their home. Jungkook's most difficult partner, Mr. Park, was there. He was rude, condescending to the staff, and made several sly comments about marriages of convenience. T, playing his role perfectly, stayed polite but quiet. Jungkook's jaw was tight the whole evening. Then Mr. Park went too far. He looked at a small, whimsical clay bird T had made in a pottery class. A class Jungkook had secretly signed him up for that was on a shelf. Mr. Park, what a quaint little thing. My granddaughter makes similar clutter, very childish. The word hung in the air. Childish. T froze. The old wound ripped open. He saw Jungkook's hand clenched around his wine glass, so hard his knuckles were white. JK, that quaint little thing, Jungkook's voice was deceptively calm, was made by my husband. It is art, and it has more value and heart than anything you've ever owned. I think it's time for you to leave. Mr. Park spluttered, but Jungkook stood up, his presence suddenly massive and terrifying. JK, get out of my house. Now, the deal is off. After a stunned Mr. Park was ushered out, the silence in the room was explosive. T was trembling, touched by Jungkook's defense, but terrified of the consequences. T, Jungkook SSI your deal, JK. I don't care about the deal. Jungkook roared, finally unleashing the anger he'd been holding back all night. He slammed his hand on the table, making T jump. He doesn't get to talk to you like that. No one does. He was breathing heavily, his anger a live wire in the room. But it wasn't directed at T. It was for him. Still, the intensity was frightening. T, overwhelmed by the conflict of fear and overwhelming love, started to cry. Silent tears rolled down his cheeks. Seeing T cry broke something in Jungkook. The anger vanished, replaced by instant, gut-wrenching regret. He looked at his own hand, at the scared look on T's face, and he hated himself. JK. Taehyung, he took a step forward, but T flinched back. That small movement shattered Jungkook. He had become the very thing he was trying to protect T from a source of fear. JK, voice broken, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He turned and walked away, not to his study, but out of the front door, into the night. Taehyung sank to the floor, crying. He wasn't crying because he was scared of Jungkook. He was crying because he saw the pain in Jungkook's eyes just now. He was crying because he loved a man who was so hurt. He only knew how to express care through this fierce, terrifying anger. And he had no idea how to reach him. Jungkook didn't come home that night. T didn't sleep. He sat by his flowering balcony, waiting. Jungkook was at a bar, drinking water, staring into nothing. His cousin Seokjin found him there. Seokjin, the whole city heard you fired Park, and I heard why. Jin sat down. Jin, you're in love with him. JK, don't be stupid, Jungkook growled, but there was no fire in it. Seokjin, Jungkook, you brought him an orchid. You sit through Pororo reruns. You nearly broke a man's hand for calling his pottery childish. You're not fooling anyone, least of all yourself. Jungkook put his head in his hands. JK. He flinched from me, Taehyung. He looked at me like I was a monster. I am a monster. My anger, it's what I have. It's all I've ever had to protect what's mine. Seokjin, maybe you need something else now. Maybe you need to be soft for him. Jungkook went home at dawn. He found Taehyung asleep on the living room sofa. Tear tracks dried on his cheeks. His heart ached. He carefully picked T up. T, even in sleep, instinctively curled into his chest, nuzzling there. That small act of trust, even while asleep, undid Jungkook completely. He carried T to his own bedroom. The one T was never allowed to enter. He laid him gently on the huge bed and crawled in beside him, just watching him sleep. He didn't touch him, just watched the sunrise paint T's face in gold. Taehyung woke slowly, feeling warm and safe. Then he realized the pillow smelled like Jungkook, sandalwood, and rain. His eyes flew open. He was in Jungkook's room. And Jungkook was right there beside him, awake, watching him with red-rimmed, vulnerable eyes. T. J. Jungkook SSI, JK. I'm sorry, Jungkook whispered, his voice rough. For scaring you, for my anger, for everything. I'm not good at this. I don't know how to be gentle. T's heart swelled. He slowly reached out, his fingers touching Jungkook's cheek. Jungkook leaned into the touch, closing his eyes. T, you are gentle. When you bring me blankets, when you take care of me when I'm sick, when you defend me. That's your gentleness. It's just a little loud sometimes. A choked sound escaped Jungkook. He turned his head and pressed a kiss to T's palm. The touch was electric. JK, Taehyung, this contract. T. I don't care about the contract, T said bravely, sitting up a little. T, I care about you. I think I'm in love with you, Jian Jungkook, and it's terrifying. Jungkook's eyes flew open, wide with shock, and a hope so raw it was painful to see. JK, you love me. Even after last night. Even after how cold I was. T, I saw the real you, the one hiding behind the cold and the anger. The one who loves orchids and protects what's his. I love him. That was it. The last wall around Jungkook's heart crumbled. With a soft, desperate sound, he pulled Taehyung into his arms, holding him tighter than he'd ever held anything. JK, I love you, Kim Taehyung. I think I loved you in that park, crying in your wedding suit. I just didn't know what it was. It felt like fury, but it was love. I love your smile. I love your childish, wonderful heart. I love your flowers and your terrible cartoons. I love you. He pulled back just enough to look into T's eyes, his own brimming with tears for the first time T had ever seen. JK, will you stay? Not because of a contract, but because you want to. Will you be my real husband? Taehyung answered him the only way he could. He leaned in and kissed him. It was soft at first, a sweet press of lips, full of promise. Then it deepened, filled with all the loneliness, the hope, the longing they had both kept locked away. It was warm, it was passionate, and it felt like coming home. When they finally parted, breathless, T rested his forehead against Jungkook's. T, yes, 1,000 times yes. That morning, the cold mansion finally became home. The storm had passed, not with destruction, but with a cleansing rain, leaving behind a clear sky and the promise of a radiant, warm sun. Jungkook held his husband, his real husband, in his arms, and for the first time in his life, he felt completely, perfectly at peace.